So, is this finally it? Is this the end of crypto? It's a question that just keeps popping up every time the market takes a hit. But lately, the answers people are giving are getting a lot scarier.
Look, we've all heard it a million times, right? Crypto is dead. It's practically a meme. But what if this time it's actually different? What if those whispers aren't just coming from online trolls, but from some of the world's top economists and regulators? All right, let's really dig into this. We're going to break down the biggest, most powerful arguments for a total crypto collapse. We're talking arguments from leading economists, global regulators, and even from Robert Kiyosaki, the rich dad, poor dad guy. The real question is, could they actually be right? Okay, so the first major threat isn't some crazy market crash, it's a crackdown. All across the globe, governments are really starting to tighten the screws, and it feels like they're building this giant regulatory vice around the entire crypto industry. And you gotta understand, this isn't just one country doing its own thing. This looks coordinated. Over in Europe, you've got these massive MiCA regulations, basically telling crypto firms they need to get licensed and play by bank-like rules. Here in the US, there's a huge clampdown on stablecoins. China, they've just banned it completely. And then you have the SEC going after major exchanges one by one. It really feels like a global, unified campaign. And here's the endgame for all this regulation, the thing everyone's worried about, a liquidity freeze. I mean, if it gets too difficult to get money into crypto, or more importantly, out of crypto, the whole system could just seize up. No more buying, no more selling, just frozen solid. But the threats aren't all coming from the outside. There's a potential crisis brewing right at the very heart of crypto itself, Bitcoin mining. The very foundation could be shaking. So here's how this could spiral completely out of control. First, you have things like the Bitcoin halving and soaring energy costs, which just crush miners' profits. That forces the smaller, less efficient miners to shut down their machines. To cover their losses, what do? They sell off their Bitcoin reserves, flooding the market. And the result of that? Investor confidence just goes right off a cliff. And the technical side of this is just as scary. See, with fewer miners, you get a lower hash rate. You can think of the hash rate as the network's immune system. It's the computing power that keeps it secure. A lower hash rate means the network gets slower, it gets less reliable, and this is the big one, it becomes way more vulnerable to an attack. We're talking about a threat to the very core of what makes Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Now let's step away from Bitcoin for a second and look at the wild west of altcoins. I mean, thousands upon thousands of them have been created over the years. But what's left behind is basically a digital graveyard. You have to hear this stat. Over 80%, 80 of all the altcoins from that last big bull run are now effectively dead. Gone to zero, worthless. It is an absolutely staggering failure rate.
This has led a lot of experts to a really brutal conclusion, which is that 99% of crypto is useless. The thinking here is that most of these projects were never more than just hype. They had no real-world use case, no solid business plan, just a lot of noise.
And the damage here is so much bigger than just the money lost. When you have millions of regular, everyday investors getting burned on projects like these, it basically poisons the well for the entire industry. It could destroy public trust for a whole generation. So this collapse in trust, it sets the stage perfectly for our final and honestly most dramatic argument for a crypto collapse. And it comes from Robert Kiyosaki. He calls it the extinction phase. Kiyosaki's whole theory is that the financial elites want total control, and he's laid out exactly how he thinks they'll do it. First, governments launch their own digital currencies, CBDCs, to compete directly with crypto. Then, banks just start blocking all transfers to crypto exchanges. And to top it all off, they hit you with absolutely crippling taxes on any gains. For Kiyosaki, this is the three-punch combo that would be the final nail in the coffin. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a twist. Even Kiyosaki, who's painting this super bleak picture, doesn't actually predict a total wipeout. He believes that while most of crypto goes extinct, one asset will survive the storm: Bitcoin. And that one little detail, well, that changes everything. So what if we've been asking the wrong question this whole time? Let's just flip the script. What if this isn't an apocalypse? What if all this chaos isn't destruction, but a transformation? A really painful one, but a necessary one. Let's just play with that idea for a second. Imagine 90% of the crypto market just vanished tomorrow. All the scams, the meme coins, the projects with no purpose, poof, gone. What would you be left with? you'd have a much smaller, but maybe a much, much stronger and more valuable 10%.
And what could be in that surviving 10%? Well, you could have Bitcoin finally solidifying its role as digital gold. You'd have Ethereum as the undisputed backbone for smart contracts and decentralized finance. You'd have genuinely innovative AI-powered blockchains and the tokenization of real-world assets. All the fluff would be gone, leaving behind only the tech that could actually change the world.
So maybe what we're witnessing isn't the end of crypto. Maybe it's the great consolidation. A really painful but maybe essential process where the market sheds its skin and only the strongest, most useful projects survive to build what comes next. And that brings us right back to the biggest question of all. Is this the end of a failed experiment? Or is it just a messy, chaotic, but ultimately necessary transformation into something stronger? The future of crypto really does hang in the balance. What do you think is going to happen?